now back to our regularly scheduled program. Let's welcome Shane Krauser.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right. Test. Are we good? I think we're working. Okay. A few things. We're going to do our debate during the last hour. And let me just remind you, A through E. Who's A through E? Raise your hand, look around. A through E. Flag burning is protected speech. Now, as you take on your issue, not only do I want you to advance your argument, I want you to contemplate some counters when you are approached by members of the audience, or maybe I'm going to throw a question your way. How do you counter to put yourself in an offensive position and making the other justify why they believe it's not protected speech or whatever that may be? So not only do I want you to focus on answering and articulating your view, but also on asking the question to counter the questioner. Okay, so contemplate that. A through E, flag burning is protected speech. Where's F through J? F through J? We got some, look around. We've got some folks back here. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Aren't you F through J? Oh, so you're next around. F through J. Right here, back here. Yes? F through J. Very good. And so why don't we do A through E? You're eventually going to meet back here. F through J. Why don't we say you're back here? And again, your argument is healthcare is not a right. Well, F through J. So you must be. Oh, you're right. You're right. That's right, because I had originally 5 topics. Excuse me. A through G. Raise your hand. A through G. Look around. Okay, you'll meet in the back corner eventually. Flag burning is protected speech. H through N. H through N. Raise your hand. I'm sorry for the confusion. H through N. Healthcare is not a right. O through T. Raise your hand. Look around. O through T. Cameras on the streets don't make us safer and violate our rights. Okay? And this say you can meet up here. And then U through Z, raise your hand. I think we're a relatively few. U through Z. We've got some talk show hosts back there. Vito and Vito, raise your hand. You're going to be helping these guys out. Vito and Vito, you all will be meeting up in this area, and you're going to be arguing that businesses have a right to discriminate if they're asked to do something that would violate the owner's religious beliefs. All right? So very good. We'll be breaking. We'll do this a little bit later on. And I want to let you know, I do have a few books left. Apparently some folks were under the impression that my book is $50. It is, it's $15, but here's the good news. My book is currently going on eBay for $50, a signed copy for $50. I don't know why. You can just come to me and I'll sign it for $15. But it's on Amazon right now, or excuse me, eBay right now for $50 and on Amazon for $40. So there you go. You can make a little bit of money, I guess, if you wanted to. All right, so let's move it into this. We've got a lot to cover before we take a break, so we're going to move relatively quickly. What is their strategy that needs to become our strategy? Right there. Stop fighting the election cycle battle as a first priority. Remember, as I've stated before, conservatives, liberty-minded folks tend to be tourists to politics. They show up when? Every election cycle, and then they go back to sleep. What's the other side doing? Fighting for the next generation. They're working on dominating culture and political institutions. That's what we have to do. Take back not only the narrative, but take back the institutions that are going to allow us to advance our narrative rather quickly. Okay? So that's what we've got to do. Stop doing this. Stop doing that. Don't we do that all the time? Oh, bailouts, healthcare, all of these things, and we say, stop it. You have to understand what the philosophy is from the other side. The philosophy from the other side is to get you to compromise your liberties away. It was just a few months ago, I spoke at the annual convention for the Arizona Federation of Republican Women, and there were 2 speakers, the governor of Arizona and me. And here's the beautiful thing. I was the last speaker. I got to go after the governor, and they convinced her to stay. And my message was stop compromising our liberties away. And it was not directed at her, although I think she felt a little bit of the pain. She was very, very uncomfortable, would not make eye contact with me throughout my presentation. So be it. Stop compromising our liberties away. Because what does the other side do? It's important to understand. They come and they say, hey, we want to get rid of all guns. You don't believe me? Remember Dianne Feinstein in 1995? Said if I had enough votes, I would have took every last gun away from the American people. Don't be fooled. That's the agenda, to take away guns from the people. What do conservatives say? Stop! Don't do that. Okay, well, let's compromise. And then we go to the table of compromise, and that's the reason why we have universal background checks, or at least moving in that direction, background checks in general. That's the reason why we have limitations on magazine capacity. That's the reason why we have concealed weapon permits. I come from a state where you don't need a concealed weapon permit. You do not need to get a permission slip to carry concealed. And we're not shooting people up out in the Wild West, right? We're not shooting people up. People carry their guns everywhere, and it's no big deal. People are very comfortable. So stop doing this and responding as you respond to that. It's learning to respond and control what it is that needs to be said. So here we go. I'm going to show you something here quickly, and then I'm going to move into some of these questions. I call it Operation 323. They're basically 8 principles I'm going to outline for you, but I wanted to show you this video and get your reaction. Newsroom, HBO series. This video went absolutely viral. I hope you're not one of the individuals that was responsible for making this video go viral, because there are all kinds of conservatives out there saying, he nailed it. Remember, this is Aaron Sorkin. Classic liberalism right here. Moving a narrative that is critical for the liberal faction. Again, Newsroom, year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. Actually, it was probably longer than that, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. 3 individuals up on stage. Young student stands up and says, tell us why America is the greatest country in the world. Watch how they play this out. Conservative. The liberal on stage basically give rote answers like freedom, opportunity, diversity. And then it's the moderate. It's by design. Moderate. The voice of reason comes out and says, America is really not great. And so you had a lot of conservatives that were pushing this, saying he's right on. Because he goes on with this rapid-fire approach. This is straight from Saul Alinsky. Don't allow the individual to breathe. Go after him rapid fire and keep the pressure on. So he goes forward with this rapid-fire response, and then he saves himself by saying, well, America used to be great. It doesn't matter if America used to be great. The narrative is this. America is not great today. It's that simple. That's the narrative. America is not great today. It's undermining those principles. So listen to this and then let's talk about it. You may want to jot some notes down as you go just to remind yourself as to what's said here.
Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Diversity and opportunity.
Lewis?
Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Well, why is America
Not the greatest country in the world, Professor. That's my answer.
You're saying...
Yes.
Let's talk about...
Fine. Sharon, the NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of our paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so smart, how come they lose? I'm always.
Hey.
And with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yet you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what you're talking about. Yosemite? Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men, men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore. Enough?
If you were going on the offensive, what questions would you ask here? What is the greatest country in the world? What else would you might you ask?
Why?
Why? What else?
Why do we need to adapt to come here? Because it's pretty much nationalistic group.
Okay.
If there is other countries adapt the same principles, they want to get the same quality.
You know,
We're moving from individual achievements to some group, some quasi-fake notions.
So let me address that. The comment here that was made was you're going to nationalism. I want to be very clear that when you talk about American exceptionalism, we're not talking about nationalistic pride. We're not talking about a geographic region. We're talking about defending an idea. That's what we're talking about.
That idea is not unique. If other people adopt the same idea, they get to become as great as anybody else.
That's the point. What is the idea and where is that idea found? That's what we want to argue about. So I think when we're...
Shouldn't generate emotions. You see, the point is...
Correct.
People by emotional agitation, which is...
No, I understand the idea of emotionalism, but I will not sit back and apologize for being an American. I will not sit back and say that America does not embrace certain ideas that are truly exceptional. When you say exceptional, what you're really saying is it's unique to the rest of the world. And so for something like this to go on, to understand what's going on, this is a narrative that's being driven that in turn is influencing the next generation to believe that America is just like anything else. And I'm not talking about the region, I'm talking about the idea. And so
It cannot be attached to the land.
it is attached to the land because it's where the idea is found. That's why America is unique, is because it's where the idea is found. And hold on, let me finish.
It goes away.
No, the idea is, once the idea is established, is to take the idea throughout the world. I mean, many people would say this Declaration of Independence. Those ideas are found in the very idea of American exceptionalism. And many people would say, well, the idea of freedom is the founders' gifts to America. I would say no, that the Declaration of Independence and the principles found within that declaration is God's gift to the world, meaning this: it's not supposed to be unique to America, but it is unique to America. And because it's relatively unique to America, it's fighting to expound those ideas beyond our borders, so it doesn't appear as though it's something of nationalistic pride. But I think there is such a thing as exceptionalism. I think we need to start having this conversation, and we need to start asking if I were arguing with this guy, the first question out of my mouth would be, what is the criteria for exceptionalism? What is the criteria for greatness? And I think he answered it for us. What did he say the criteria is? It's literacy. Where we rank with respect to math. Where we rank with respect to science. That is the criteria for exceptionalism. That's a bunch of garbage. What if I were to tell you that a country that ranks higher than America in literacy is Cuba? Is now Cuba somehow a more exceptional country in terms of the ideas that they embrace because they have a higher literacy rate? I mean, if you take the report as factual? No, last time I checked, individuals were leaving and risking their lives on the borders, on the shores of Cuba, coming to America. Same thing with Haiti. You go to Haiti, I mean, they bypass all of these countries. They go by Cuba, they go by the Bahamas, they go by the islands of Turk and Caicos, they go by all of these countries to go where? To an area that gives an opportunity that very few other countries have to offer. And so all I'm suggesting is this is a lie. This is a lie. To suggest that America only leads the world in 3 categories is a lie. It's an outright lie. The number of people that believe angels are real, the amount of money that we spend in defense, and then the number of incarcerated criminals, those are the only 3 areas where we lead the world. No, how about this? America produces more millionaires than any other country in the world. Why? It's called prosperity and opportunity. We have more patents in place than any other country in the world. Why? It's called a constitution that protects ideas, copyrights, trademarks. Article 1, Section 8 says, Congress, your obligation is protect ideas. We have more patents in force than any other. Hold on, I'm going to let you come back. But I want to outline why I'm going to outline the lie here. In addition, scientific citations. Scientific citations are things that individuals who are generating thought, new experiment, look to see what other scientists have already done. We have more scientific citations coming out of this country than the next 5 countries combined. GDP, we're 5% of the world's population, yet we create 25% of the world's wealth. Why? Is it because of a geographic region? No, it's because of ideas that are in place that allow individuals to go on the front lines and risk everything to push their ideas. Innovation, creativity. So and there's many more. We could talk about universities. He wants to talk about education. Why don't we talk about where real scholarship is going on? 8 of the top 10 universities in the world are found where? Right here in America. And again, I want to be careful. I'm not talking about nationalistic pride. That's not what this has to do. It has to do with an idea that's found here where individuals can take advantage of freedom. I mean, think about this for a moment. When you look at a guy like Benjamin Franklin, if it had not been for America, what does Benjamin Franklin end up doing? He's a printer. He's a printer. That's what he does. George Washington, if there's no America and he lives under British rule, what does he become? Major at best. Major at best in the British Army. Right? Well, but I know, but if he were to, I'm talking about, he's a farmer, but he's serving in the military. What I'm suggesting, he became the general here. He becomes major at best in the military. Yes? Give him the microphone. Speak in the microphone.
You're mixing 2 things here. One is you're correct about the framework of liberty, which allows individual opportunities to prosper. But that's not the goal. It's just pragmatic approach. But you mix other stuff with the group thinking. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm a Jewish, right? And most Jews would associate themselves with the best Jews. Let's say Albert Einstein. So because of Albert Einstein was so great, every Jew feel very proud.
No, that's not what we're talking about, though.
The same thing.
Why don't we talk about why Albert Einstein came to America?
Hold on. You said we have best number of scientists, millionaires. But that doesn't have to do with any other people who didn't achieve anything. They shouldn't take pride because somebody happens to be in their country, and that's because of the country. So you have to emphasize the framework. You have to stick to the private property, unregulated private property, which is basically like what we have now, only the internet and nothing else. So when you stick to the unregulated private properties, that's the framework for individual liberty. But now, when you start to divert to collectivist agitation of the emotions, like land, collective group, and somehow that if you are an American, happens to be, you're kind of part of that. It's like I said, I'm a Jew in Australia, but because of Albert Einstein was so good, maybe that's genetically potent as well. So you see,
the individual is important, but what I'm saying, we're talking about the framework, and I think you're denying that I outlined the framework. I absolutely outlined the framework. I said as they move, wait, I let you speak, so I'm going to finish. When you're talking about framework, I outlined the framework. What did I say after I followed each one of those categories where America leads the world? It's because of the framework that allows these things to happen. That's the result. Those are the consequences. That's what happens when you live within a framework that embraces not America the country, America the idea. That's what I'm talking about, America the idea. So, you know what? We've got 25 minutes, and I promised that I was going to get to these final points before we engage in the debate, and I appreciate this discussion, I really do. So let's move into how do you go on the offensive? I'm going to show you a great example, and then we're going into the 3-2-3. This is Chris Christie. Watch what he does here.
A fiery exchange between New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and a disgruntled teacher getting a very big reaction today. Teacher Rita Wilson saying she should get more money for her work and education. Watch this.
Governor, only pay me for the 184 days I work here in Rutherford. You know what that equals? $83,000 a day. And I'm begging you to pay me $83,000
Well, you know what?
a day.
You're getting paid more than that if
Really?
you include,
It's $11,000
the cost of your benefits, if
right,
you include the cost of your pension, and you include your paid holidays.
I'm still $14,000 less. I'm still $14,000, and you're not compensating me for my education, and you're not compensating me for my experience.
Well, you know what? Then you don't have to do it. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is.
Did you see that? Initially, he goes on the defensive, saying, well, you got your benefits coming at you. He's playing on her playing field. What does he do next? He goes on the offensive by saying, you didn't have to do that. In other words, her playing field is what? It's unfair. What's his playing field that he eventually goes to? Your choice, personal responsibility. Now he's driving the message here of personal responsibility. Very, very powerful techniques. And I'll tell you, whatever you think about Chris Christie, he does a pretty solid job of staying on the offensive. Okay. Here we go. These are 3 powerful questions. You need to write these down, you need to understand them, and you need to start using them. When I go on to a college campus, this is the technique I use quite often. And I want you to imagine you're going in, you're talking to 500, 600, 700 kids. They have preconceived notions about what you stand for. He's this Constitution guy from Arizona. He must be a right-wing crazy guy. That's what he is. Because all of us who believe in the Constitution are right-wing crazy guys. And so you go into that auditorium and you engage in dialogue. And this is the question I ask. How many here want to be told what to do? Nobody? Nobody? In all of the college campuses I've been on all over this country, I've never had one student raise his hand and say, yeah, I want to be told what to do. I want government to tell me how to live my life because they certainly know how to live my life better than I do. Please tell me what to do. Never happened. Do you see what's going on here? We're establishing a playing field. The guy's no longer a crazy Constitution right-wing wacko. He's a guy that's just established common ground. So the question is then this. If we don't want to be told what to do, why are we allowing government to tell us what to do? Now, you guys just had this crazy soda ban that was supposed to go into effect a year ago. And I was here on the day that was supposed to be implemented, walking your streets and talking to individuals. I went into the Hard Rock Cafe and talked to folks in there, waiters and waitresses and customers. Daryl was with me when we did that. And it was an interesting conversation because it wasn't political. It revolved around being told what to do. Imagine having that conversation just as a starting point with some of your liberal friends and even some of your conservative friends who endorse legislation that tells you what to do. So if we want to live a life where we're left alone, I mean, understand there is a proper role for government. Government should step in when rights are being infringed upon by other people. Okay? So there is a role for government. But their job is not to tell you how much soda you can consume in a restaurant or how much soda the restaurant is permitted to sell. Right? Is the item that's being sold illegal? Are you free to consume soda pop? Yes. It's not crack. It's not meth. It's soda pop. And so if a business wants to sell that and offering that, you should be able to buy as much as you want. Who is an individual in government to come in and dictate what it is that you're permitted to enjoy, what you're permitted to utilize your resources to purchase? They're not. And so this is very interesting. In my own college classroom with my own students, you imagine having this conversation. Now they start to recognize as very young kids, 17, 18, 19 years old, they're on the wrong track. I need to start reevaluating my political philosophy. Second question that I ask, who here believes that government should follow the rules? Everybody believes that. I've never had one student raise their hand and say government shouldn't have to follow the rules. Maybe today's going to be the first time. But I've never had one person stand up in these liberal colleges saying government doesn't have to follow the rules. They shouldn't have to follow the rules. We understand it intuitively that if you're going to put individuals in positions of power, you have to create parameters. The issue is, what do those parameters look like? Now guess what we're debating? We're debating something that you know better than 99% of the population, and that's what the rule of law says, the Constitution. I'm now driving the narrative, but I'm also controlling the discussion. because I know what the ruling document says. Because where do we go next? If they say, yeah, government should have to follow the rules, what's the rule book then? What's the rule book? Yeah, right. They may not say that. They may come up with some crazy answer. I don't know what they're going to say. But now we're driving that discussion. And I'm going to show you a technique here in just a moment on how you drive that discussion on the Constitution itself. Third question. Who here believes that you should be able to keep the fruits of your labor? Now, I will tell you this. I do have students raise their hand and say, you shouldn't be able to keep all the fruits of your labor. Do you really need to make $1 million a year? And so I want you to imagine this. As I have those students raise their hand and I say, because I reverse the question, I say, how many here believe that you should not be able to keep the fruits of your labor? And you got a few. You guys stand up. I have them stand up. So I see you guys on your iPod there. You got your computers. I'm sure you got some money in that wallet. So here's what we're going to do. I'd like you to come on up front and on the podium here, just go ahead and set those items down. And a few dollars, whatever you've got with you. And we'll go down to the pawn shop when we're through here. We'll cash those things in, and we'll go down to a lower income community and distribute that. How about we do that? You know what? I've never had one student take me up on that. I've never had one student come to me and say, you know what, I was kind of nervous about doing that, but I'm telling you, let's go ahead and do that. They won't do it because socialism is a cool idea. It's a cool idea on a college campus, but they're not really socialist. They don't really believe that. It's really a fad. It's what's in vogue on a college campus today, but they don't believe that. You know, it's all well and good until it's coming out of their pocket. You know, who was it? Winston Churchill that said, if you're 20 and not a liberal, you don't have a heart. But if you're 20 and not or 40 and conservative, you don't have a brain. See, that's the idea. It takes time when they recognize when you're 40 years old and you're out there working your tail off for that money. I don't want to give it back to the government. When you're 20, it's apparently when you're out on a college campus, it's all, hey, cradle to grave security. See what I can get from somebody else. Imagine these three questions. Put this in your arsenal. This is powerful, powerful, powerful stuff right here that we need to start using. On my radio program, you can go to libertystormradio.com. That's libertystormradio.com, and you can find out I do a daily radio show. When we have callers, I use this all the time. They come in and they want to talk about some issue. Let me stop you there. Do you want to be told what to do? No. So why don't we just cut right to the chase? Why are you advancing this policy if you don't want to be told what to do? And this particular policy has nothing to do with government coming in and ensuring that certain rights are not infringed upon. Why are you advocating this policy? And by the way, you also believe that government should follow the rules, right? You understand that what it is you're advocating is not permissible under the rule book, don't you? I mean, so it's using this as a technique. That when we talk about Operation 323, this is the 3. This is powerful stuff. By the way, I teach the precinct committeemen out in Arizona, affiliated with the Republican Party. This is what their PC training looks like. This is what I developed, and we're going in and teaching these people not just how to set up a booth, you know, out in front of a grocery store. We're teaching them how to go door to door and have a conversation, a real conversation. So that's your operation number 3. What's the 2 look like? There it is, your 2 immovable peers. We already talked about this earlier. What are the 2 immovable peers of our Constitution? Men and women are born free. Men and women with power cannot be trusted. Now, Woodrow Wilson is something that I mentioned a little bit earlier. I think when you understand Woodrow Wilson and FDR and LBJ and that crowd, and just their underlying philosophy, I'm not asking you to go out and read a treatise, just understanding what it is that they believe in. Right? These 2 principles are turned upside down with Woodrow Wilson. Being able to talk about those things, and either they're going to agree or disagree with these things. If they agree with you, we move on. If they disagree with you, what are you doing? You're talking about history. Because that's the one thing conservatives have going for them, is history is on their side. When you talk about men and women cannot be trusted with power, guess what? History is on your side. It is not on the side of Woodrow Wilson or Barack Obama, who says, reject the voices that tell you tyranny is lurking around every corner. No, tyranny is lurking around every corner. Okay? That's what history tells us. And to sit back and simply do nothing allows their ideas to do exactly what they're doing, that is, permeate the society. So that's your operation. Oops. Oh. Wait. Oh, yes. No, never mind. I'm not going to show that. Okay. So you have the Operation 3, which is, do you want to be told what to do? do you believe government should follow the rules? Do you want to keep the fruits of your labor? The 2 is understanding the basic principles of the Constitution. Men and women are born free. Men and women with power cannot be trusted. This is your last one. LEJ. All I want you to memorize is LEJ. How many articles are in the Constitution? 7 articles, 27 amendments. 7 articles, 27 amendments. All I want to focus on for 2 minutes here is what's in Articles 1, 2, and 3. Listen, I'm about to teach you something where you can control the conversation anytime you're involved in the role of government and what the Constitution says 95% of the time. What I'm about to tell you. This LEJ concept simply is this. I'm involved with someone in the discussion about what's going on federally. Congress. They're proposing a piece of legislation. Article 1, legislative branch. Article 2, executive branch. Article 3, judicial branch. So I'm involved in this healthcare debate. I'm involved in immigration issue. I'm involved in borrowing of money, taxing and spending, and for what purposes they can do that. And so I ask, where in Article 1 are they permitted to do that? What do you mean Article 1? Now I'm on the offensive. I'm not arguing good idea, bad idea. If I'm involved in the discussion, if I bring that discussion about, I'm going to be mandating that they tell me where in the rule book Congress is permitted to do that. Oh, I don't want to talk about that. Wait a second. Didn't you acknowledge that government should follow the rules? Yeah, I believe government should follow the rules, so let's talk about the rule book. Article 1 is what's outlined, which that is their enumerated powers. Tell me where they're permitted to do what you're proposing. Well, it's just a great idea. I didn't ask if it was a good idea or a bad idea. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's talk about the constitutional parameters here. What's going on? Tell me where in Article 1 he's permitted to do it. Or Article 2, the president's signing a piece, an executive order. Where in Article 2 does he have the power to do what it is that you're endorsing? Tell me where. Judicial branch is deciding to hear a particular case. Tell me where in Article 3 they have that power. You see this? Just understanding LEJ. I mean, I'm encouraging you to go and read the Constitution. But just these simple concepts, now think what you're doing as you sit down with the congressman. You're having that one-on-one with the congressman. I don't know how often you're able to see your congressman and engage in forums. In Arizona, they're frequent. I mean, you could meet your governor, members of your state legislature, individuals in U.S. Congress on a weekly basis if you wanted to, because they're constantly going around to the grassroots organizations and Republican clubs. So we're able to get up close and personal with them. These conversations happen all the time in Arizona. I've seen them. I've watched them in open forums. I've watched them in closed forums where someone will approach and say, hey, you signed that piece of legislation, you endorsed it, and you passed it on to the president. Tell me where in Article 1 you're justifying this piece of legislation. I've seen knockout, drag-out arguments go, and I've seen legislators turn and say, you know, I just felt that was in the best interest of the country, and I made that decision. Now we got them on our watch list. So this is very, very powerful stuff to put you on the offensive. So before we break, and you're going to be, okay, very good. We got 10 minutes. So here are some of, Derek, can you help me with this? Shelley, can you come up for a second? Here, I'll let you. Can you help pass these out as well? So Shelley and Julia have allowed us to stay in their home, and we're so grateful for them allowing us to do that while we're here. It's really been a pleasure. 2 nights ago, we were talking about going on the offensive on a number of issues, and we started talking about minimum wage. And guys, I want you to hear this, because we are not going to hit on minimum wage in the debate, but we are talking strategy, tactics. And I think Shelley brought out just a fascinating argument, not even an argument, just a set of questions on how we take the offense in the minimum wage debate. Would you share that with us? And you know what, can I get a microphone here for you so we can pick that up?
Economic
issues
issues interest me, so minimum wage discussion is something I have frequently with my liberal friends. And naturally, they're all in favor of it. They're all in favor of a living wage and having the government tell people what the minimum wage they can pay someone. And so I sort of start the discussion by saying, you know, when the government wants to stop behavior, they make it more expensive. So if the government wants to discourage smoking cigarettes,